It's Wednesday and it's right of centre with Bridget Morton. This week, Bridget, you're marking the death of Queen Elizabeth II. How has the Prime Minister responded to this latest event?
Yeah, absolutely. This seems to be something that people talk about Jacinda Ardern and her prime ministership doing really well in spirit, responding to events. You know, she does have a statesman-like quality. She is a very sort of kind sort of person in terms of how she reacts to that. This one's a little bit different. You know, we look back on other ones like March 15 or COVID or the White Island eruption. All of those things, you know, she had a real role to play, and this one, very much of her role is ceremonial, so it's quite a different space for her to be in.
And do you think she was forced to announce a public holiday off the back of Australia?
It does seem a little bit like that, and also the Australian, I looked a little bit deeper into this, the Australian Prime Minister who is, you know, wants to sort of abolish the monarchy, he's got a minister for, you know, for the Republic there, so he's clearly on that process. He actually said that that was always part of the acknowledgement, part of the official celebrations are not the right word, commiserations, is to have a public holiday to mark that day. So I do think that she didn't really have a choice once Australia did it, but also it probably looks like something that was already sort of banked.
It's another public holiday. This year we also had Matariki. What's the mood in the business community then?
Yeah, well, we saw Business New Zealand came out against, you know, having another public holiday, and I do think there's a number of people in the community who are frustrated about how they're meant to respond to that at such a time. You know, with Gaia going into hardship, they've had a whole lot of restrictions, thankfully just lifted. But unfortunately, I do think it is one of those things where you sort of had to do it. And so there's a little bit of, well, it's nobody's really to blame here.
And it's a welcome distraction, would you say, from cost of living crisis and, you know, the payments that have been going out to people?
I think momentarily it was, and you saw that sort of happening over the weekend. But unfortunately, there's this sort of strange time now for the Prime Minister where it would be seen as undignified or disrespectful for her to be making any big announcements or initiatives, you know, anything that kind of went through Cabinet, was meant to go through Cabinet on Monday. But in the same place that there is people still out there, still going to the supermarket, you know, struggling with the cost of milk, the cost of petrol still high, all of those things are still happening. And for those people, you know, they're probably less concerned about 11 days of mourning for the Queen.
And what about the idea of New Zealand becoming a republic? When does that conversation start?
Well, for some of the media, it started within hours of the Queen passing, and I don't think that was, you know, responded to particularly well by the community. There was felt that, you know, some time should have passed. I do think, you know, the Republican movement here has put out a press release to say that they wouldn't be making any statements for this time of mourning, but no doubt you can read between their lines there that they are preparing for the fight, you know, making sure that this is on the agenda as soon as they can sort of start go.
Is it a stronger argument now that Queen Elizabeth has died?
I think it takes out some of the emotion that people have connected, because the Queen was someone that was beloved. You know, many of us have never known another Queen. You know, King Charles doesn't have that same endearing feature. He's not yet sort of grown on many people. I think, I understand that he's got a number of changes he wants to make the monarchy look more progressive, but whether or not that's going to be enough to sort of stop this debate. And I think particularly if Australia really starts down that pathway, New Zealand is probably going to want to amp up that debate as well.
And then the Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, is heading overseas for the funeral as well, but also has other items on her agenda?
Yeah, she was always meant to go to the UN, and so that was so that's just been pushed back slightly. This is an interesting time, of course, because, you know, she does do well on the international stage, but that doesn't translate back to gains in the polls here, and it may be seen as just more time she's spending outside of the country, not focused back on the cost of milk, etc.
And this just reflects a level of low trust in the government at the moment?
Well, I think there's been overall a low trust in government, not just this government as well. We've seen, you know, obviously the protests, a whole lot of things around the vaccine mandates. So there's a difficulty, I think, in any sort of discussion about a republic happening is A, what is that going to actually make a difference in people's lives on the ground? And B, whether or not this is just another sort of big reform, another possible, you know, cynically power grab from the current government.
All right, and all political persuasions have supported this holiday, haven't they?
Yes, to an extent. I believe ACT has come out quite strongly and said they haven't supported it, and that's sort of in line with them having pretty strong views on the Matariki holiday and generally seeing themselves as the champions of small business.
It does knock quite a bit out of the economy every time we have a public holiday.
Yeah, ACT leader David Seymour, I believe, uses about $450 million, which seems like an extraordinary amount. But when you do add up, particularly I think, with an unexpected public holiday, so people's inability to plan for that means that they will just be paying wage costs, not necessarily for increased tourism traffic, for instance. I know from a colleague today trying to book flights for that long weekend, it's pretty much impossible. So it's not going to lead to a whole lot of people flying around the country and doing a whole lot of tourism.
And we need to remember this is just a one-off public holiday.
Yes, it is. And, we've got another one next month.
Bridget Morton, thank you.
Thanks.